to the August 4th meeting of the Falmouth Conservation Commission. This meeting is being held virtually via Zoom video conference. Please be patient. We'll do our best to be efficient and allow everyone to participate equitably. This meeting is also being broadcast and streamed online by FCTV in real time. As this meeting is being recorded by Zoom and broadcast by FCTV, please be cognizant of what you say, how you say it, and what can be seen and heard in your background. And the chair acknowledges the ever-growing assistance and continued support of our entire staff, Jen, Kevin, Alyssa, Mark, and Amy. Have to acknowledge the absence of Steve and Maury. Pat, you're elevated. I'd like to remind you guys that for commenting, I'll call on each of you so that we don't speak over each other, and that votes are done by roll call, even if you've made the motion or the second. To our public participants, at any time during this meeting, you may enter any comments or questions via the chat function. At the appropriate time, they will be read into the record. The link and further instructions are located on the agenda. Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021 regarding COVID-19 now allows for full public participation. If you'd like to be heard on a specific hearing, let us know via the chat function. Then at the appropriate time, I will call for public comment. When you are selected, you will be moved into the hearing as a participant. As such, you must have your video enabled, be succinct and respectful of others. Public comments will be limited to 3 minutes each. First up are requests for continuance under notice of intent. First one is John Grassi Sr. and Diane Grassi, 23 Southview Way, East Falmouth, Mass. For permission to construct a pier, deck, and privacy fence, and to install mitigation and restoration plantings. Jen and/or Kevin.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the applicant is requesting a continuance until September 1st.
Bird, so move.
O'Brien, second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to continue this until September 1st. Betsy.
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney.
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin.
O'Brien, aye.
Pat.
Harris, aye.
Peter.
Walsh, aye.
It is unanimous. We have continued this until 9/1. Next up for continuance, Greg Clancy, Clancy Constructions, 71 Alder Lane, North Falmouth, Mass. For permission to expand an existing garage, remove and replace 5 native trees, and for all associated excavation. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the applicant is requesting a continuance until August 11th.
Bird, so move.
Gladfelter, second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to continue this hearing until August 11th. Betsy.
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney.
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin.
O'Brien, aye.
Pat.
Harris, aye.
Peter.
Walsh, aye.
It is unanimous. We have continued this hearing until August 11th. Next request for a continuance is Robert B. and Elaine M. Bailey, trustees, the Elaine M. Bailey 2013 Revocable Trust, 132 Little Neck Bars Road, West Falmouth, Mass. For permission to conduct invasive species management, install restoration plantings, and to construct a patio, front walkway, and increase the size of the driveway. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the applicant is requesting a continuance until August 25th.
Bird, so move, and this has gone on multiple times, so obviously there's some hang up. What is it?
Well, remember, Courtney, that Ms. Crawford just had a baby, so that kind of put them back. She did email us today. We are going to try to set up a Zoom meeting with her next week to go over everything before she submits the final plan.
Okay. Fair enough.
Okay, there were a number of issues that the staff had identified when we sent the original staff report out, which is why they had asked for the original continuance. So we're hoping
Okay.
to get that cleared up for you next week.
Sounds like a plan. Thank you.
You
Do we
need
have
a-
a motion?
Do you need a second, Jamie? Courtney
Yes.
made the motion. I'll
I
second.
mean, yeah,
Yes. All right, we have a motion and a second to continue this till 8:25. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter.
Walsh, aye.
It is unanimous. We have continued this hearing until August 25th. Next up are requests for determination of applicability. First up, Claudia Mackin, 12 Nichols Road, East Falmouth, Mass, for permission to remove invasive vines, install pavers, replace the existing drain from the rinse station, and to install a post and light at the dock entrance. Mr. Newton.
Mr. Chairman, the applicant's requesting a continuance until August 11th.
Bird, so move.
Gladfelter, second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to continue this RDA until August 11th. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter.
Walsh, aye.
It is unanimous. We have continued this RDA until August 11th. Next up, Lori Marble, 10 Pine Rock Road, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to repair the existing septic system. Mr. Newton,
Yes, Mr. Chairman, staff recommends a -2 under the state, -3 under the bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Bird, so move.
Walsh, second.
anyone? Thank you. We have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter.
Walsh, aye.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Next up, Peter and Susan Bonney, trustees, 50 Loop Road, West Falmouth, Mass, for permission to construct and maintain a second-story dormer addition to an existing single-family dwelling. Mr. Newton,
Yes, Mr. Chairman, staff recommends a -2 under the state and under the bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Bird, so move.
Harris, second.
thank you. We have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter.
Walsh, aye.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Next up, Amy Green, 27 Barneck Road, Woods Hole, Mass, for permission to construct an addition and a covered porch to remove a portion of the driveway, to install dry wells, and to install buffer plantings. Mr. Newton,
Yes, Mr. Chairman, staff recommends a -2 under the state, a -3 under the bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Bird, so move.
Harris, second.
all right. We have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter.
Walsh, aye.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Bear with me one second. Next up, Charles Jeffrey and Veronica Jordan, 207 Meadow Neck Road, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to remove an existing pool, patio, and fence, and to conduct all associated excavation, grading, and landscaping. Mr. Newton?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Staff recommends a -2 under the state and a -3 under the bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Bird, so move.
Harris, second.
All right. right, we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter.
Walsh, aye.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Next up, the Breen Family 2020 Realty Trust, 18 Spartina Place, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to upgrade the existing subsurface sewage disposal system. Mr. Newton,
Mr. Chairman, staff recommends a -2 under the state and a -3 under the bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Bird, so move.
Harris, second.
we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter.
Walsh, aye.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Next up are continued requests for determination of applicability. First up, Lenore Freitas, 150 Birch Lane, North Falmouth, Mass, for permission to remove an existing deck, dining room, and sunroom, and to construct a new deck, front porch, and screened-in porch. Mr. Newton.
Mr. Chairman, staff recommends -2 under the state and under the bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Bird, so move.
Harris, second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter.
Walsh, aye.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Next up are requests for hearing under notice of intent. All hearings of the Falmouth Conservation Commission are held simultaneously under the authorities of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw. Although a single decision of the commission is issued, it represents a separate decision under each authority. First up, Carol Efron Flyer, 55 Moonpenny Lane, East Falmouth, Mass, for permission to conduct hardscape and landscape improvements and to install mitigation plantings. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this request for continuance came in later today. So they're requesting a continuance until August 25th.
So moved.
Bird, so move.
We had two motions, Courtney.
I'm sorry.
One of us needs to make a second.
All right, I'll make the second.
Who made the original motion?
I did.
Thank
Gladfelter.
you. All right, we have a motion and a second to continue this until August 25th. All right, Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter.
Walsh, aye.
It is unanimous. We have continued this hearing until August 25th. Next up, Frank and Judy Stepien, 185 Surf Drive, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to raise RAZE, an existing single-family dwelling, and to construct a new single-family dwelling, to reconfigure the driveway, and to install mitigation plantings. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I am promoting Raul from Cape and Islands to present the project.
Excellent. Hello, Raul.
Hi, Raul.
Good evening, everyone. For the record, Raul Lizardi with Cape and Islands Engineering, representing the applicant and the property owner. The project, as it was mentioned, it's a raise and reconstruct of a single-family dwelling. The property is located at 187 Surf Drive. However, it is accessed through Seagull Lane, which is on the back of the property. Currently, there's an existing single-family dwelling. It's a ranch-style house. It's in the velocity zone. And of course, the existing house being built in the 1950s does not conform to today's standards. The homeowner wants to remove the existing house and all the improvements on the property and build a new house in conformance with the velocity zone building requirements. So this will be a house built on stilts, and there will be a new driveway to access the garage under. It's not an enclosed garage, so it'll be a carport. If I could, I want to share my screen to continue with the presentation. So currently, there is an existing house. It's a single story with multiple decks. There's an existing driveway off of Seagull Way that accesses the site. There's an existing shed, and there's an existing AC pad and several stairs to access the decks and the house. That's the existing development, all of it within the velocity zone, all of it also within the riverfront. Over to the east, across the neighboring property, there is Fresh River. Fresh River is a tidal river, coastal river. The mouth of the river is the culvert underneath Surf Drive. So this portion of mean high water defines the river. The entire property falls within 200 foot of that river. So the entire property is in the riverfront. And as I mentioned, the entire property is also within the velocity zone. The existing development, which is closest to the river, is the existing driveway that will be removed. At one location is approximately 85 feet to the river. It's approximately 79 feet to the top of the coastal bank. The coastal bank is a man-made structure on the abutting property, lining up the western edge of Fresh River. It's riprap, mortar in place. There's a capstone that defines the coastal bank. The buffer zone to the coastal bank is 50 feet. The buffer zone to the river or land under water body is 75 feet. And then there's the buffer zone B to those resources shown on the plan at this location. Overall, the redevelopment renders the property with approximately 122 square feet of additional development within the buffer zones. That buffer zone is the buffer zone B, which in itself, by FAMOS regulations, required twice the amount in mitigation areas. So we are proposing 244 square feet of mitigation closest to the resource areas, which is within our property at this location. There's an existing hedge on the easterly property line halfway through the property line. The back half of that property line doesn't have the hedge. We're proposing to locate the mitigation plantings at that location. There are some ornamental shrubs in front of where we're proposing some of that mitigation. However, we're proposing to take 2 of the ornamental shrubs and relocate them to the south property line. That way, it will allow us to open an area closer and within buffer zone A and portion of buffer zone B, but closer to the resources for the required mitigation planting. The redevelopment within the riverfront also renders an increase of 20 square feet of development within the riverfront. However, the 20 square feet of increased development in the riverfront requires 20 square feet of mitigation planting. The local mitigation requirements already exceeds that at 244. The site is serviced by town sewer, so there is no need for a septic system on this property. There is town water serving the property, so all those utilities will be reconnected to the new house. The house will be lifted. The only portion that's going to be enclosed is the enclosure for the stairs to access from the carport area underneath the house up to the main floor. We're proposing dry wells in the form of a trench. The existing grades on this property are roughly 5.5 feet in elevation, so there's not enough depth of sand soil to do typical dry wells in the form of leaching pits. So what we're proposing to do is shallow but long leaching trenches to collect the 4 corners of the downspouts for this roof. The driveway is gonna be reconfigured and it's gonna be located further away from the resources than the existing driveway. The structure itself has a platform, an elevated platform. It's not gonna be a solid platform. It's gonna be brackets that are gonna hold AC units. For this particular area, that platform that we're calling for the AC units and generator is located 1 foot closer to the coastal bank than the existing shed and 1 foot closer to the river than the existing shed, but further away than the existing driveway. So in our opinion, this redevelopment within the riverfront is not getting any closer to the riverfront than the existing developments of the site. I believe that concludes my initial presentation. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you, Raul.
I will stop sharing.
Thanks. All right. Jen and or Kevin?
I'll start, Mr. Chairman. Raul, how are the mitigation plantings being maintained? I mean, when we walked outside, we couldn't even actually access behind the shrub row that you are proposing to put all the mitigation plantings in because we would have had to trespass on the neighboring property. So how are they going to be maintained?
So, right, if I can share a photograph. If I find the right photograph. So these are the rows of the ornamental shrubs. Hopefully everybody's seeing them. So yeah, if we keep those shrubs as they are, it's difficult to get access to where the mitigation planting is going to go. However, we're proposing to remove and relocate the two furthest to the south. That's going to open up an area of about 15 feet. And if I stop sharing that picture and share the plan, this is the area of about 15 feet where there'll be access to maintain those shrubs.
But how are you going to maintain the shrubs when they're allowed to grow in their full and mature form and they're like basically over the neighbor's property?
Right, once they're mature, they're just gonna be let grow naturally. There's not gonna be any irrigation to maintain them.
Okay.
If the mitigation plantings do die, one of the conditions typical for Falmouth is that they have to be replaced.
Okay. And can you address, so DEP had some technical comments, as the board can see. DEP is in disagreement with Raul on a certain section of the riverfront regulation, where it says, and I can read it to you if I can find it. So I just had it. Basically, within the 200-foot riverfront area, the proposed work shall not be, and this is for redevelopment within previously developed riverfront area. They're disagreeing with C. Within the 200-foot riverfront area, the proposed work shall not be located closer to the river than the existing conditions or 100 feet, whichever is less, or not closer than the existing conditions within 25-foot riverfront areas, except in accordance with 5G, F, and G. So what I believe they're doing is they're basing it off the existing house or existing shed. I highly doubt they're using the shed. So in DEP's opinion, they feel that that house is moving closer. Now, if you go to redevelopment, the definition of redevelopment within the Wetlands Protection Act, it says it means redevelopment, rehabilitation, or expansion of existing structures, improvement of existing roads, or the reuse of a degraded or previously developed area for the purposes of the riverfront area. which is 310 CMR 5.8. So Raul, what you're saying is that you're not moving any closer than the driveway.
That's correct. We're
And
using the
you're
driveway-
saying,
We're using the driveway as the closest development within the site that renders that portion of the driveway degraded because it's an impervious surface.
improvements of existing roads or the reuse or of degraded or previously developed areas for the purposes of 310 CMR 10.5. So that's where you're saying that you're reusing that, but that's the reuse of that area, not moving closer than that area.
Right, that same definition, if I can share my screen. So this is directly from the regulations, which is what Jen already read to the board. So previously developed riverfront areas contain areas degraded prior to August 1996 by impervious surfaces of existing structures, pavement, absence of topsoil, junkyards, and so forth. So this is all what's currently developed, which includes driveways, the structures of codes, including the sheds and the AC pads and so forth. In section C, which is what they're saying that this project does not conform to, it says that it should not move closer than 100 feet or for the existing development, whichever is closer. So what we're saying is the existing development is what is closer. Now, however, if the board does not agree with that, that same section C follows up with saying it can continue with that increase or getting closer if you conform to section F, which is the mitigation area for the increase in development. In either way, the project does meet that requirement.
Well, your mitigation is for your resource area buffer and not your riverfront area.
Right, the riverfront area mitigation, if it applies, it will be a 1-to-1 ratio. The increase in the development is 20 square feet. A 1-to-1 ratio is 20 square feet. However, we're saying that we don't have to meet that because the existing degraded areas on the property are already closer to the resource area, to the riverfront.
I'm wondering why DEP though wrote that technical comment. So they obviously disagree with it somehow.
I feel like on our plan, we show a table of comparison between structures. And it's just comparing structures to structures. And it shows that the existing structure is further than the proposed structure by 1 feet. And technically, if those numbers are not rounded to the closest full number, it's getting closer by 5 inches is what we're talking about for this project.
Okay. All right, well, I think the board has enough information so they can kind of think about that for a minute. I think that's it, Kevin, unless you had anything to add.
I do not at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Oh, one other thing, Raul, that rinse station, that's not going to be enclosed, right?
That's correct.
Because we actually, the neighboring one said it wasn't going to be enclosed and we have to send them a letter because there's a little structure around it now.
No, I did talk to the homeowner and he agreed he's not going to enclose it.
Okay, and just for absolute clarity, because you know this is my thing, the only enclosed space is going to be where you have stair enclosure. Everything else around that, since you haven't provided the architecturals, everything else behind that, around that stair enclosure, just for the record, is going to be on open pilings. Is going to be open and not enclosed, correct?
That's how it's being reviewed, yes.
Okay, thank you. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Raul, what's the first floor elevation?
The plan is not calling the first floor elevation. What it's calling is to comply with the velocity zone building construction. The bottom elevation of the horizontal element has to be 2 feet above elevation 15. So that bottom horizontal structural component has to be elevation 17. So on top of that, the first floor will carry over.
Thank you. All right, I'm gonna open up to commissioner comments. Betsy,
I have no questions or comments. It's nice to see Raul.
been a while. He's been avoiding us. Courtney,
Jen asked my question. I have no other questions.
all right. Kevin,
Seems to me we've been in that neighborhood before and nothing has happened. And I'm just wondering if there is a problem with the footings for the pilings in the house that was proposed for next door, I believe. It was some time ago. I think if you walk around the property next door, you'll find that the stakes are still there.
Mhm.
And I just want to know if Raul is confident that putting a house on pilings is a good idea in that location.
I don't know the details for what took place for the approvals of 183, but I do understand that 183 also has to be a house on piles. I don't know what the soils are at this location. It could be that the piles that have to be driven have to be a rather long pile to get to actual stable soils. But I don't have a soil test. I know that whoever the structural engineer is going to be, they may do some testing for driving a pile, because before they actually begin to construct the house, they have to make sure that they have suitable soils to support the piles. But it has to be elevated in piles.
Okay, Raul, thank you. I just wanted my remark to be noted for you.
it is in the record, as they say. And I think you're right, there was an issue with in that general area prior.
I
But
think it
that's
had
been
more to do with
resolved.
the fact that the one next door is right on the river.
It was 9 feet away, if I
But
remember right.
still, it was.
Hold on, Courtney.
It was the sort of single significant issue with that particular piece of property.
I think we have them do a soil boring too, Kevin, you're correct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a fair observation, given the proximity, so. All right. Pat,
I have a couple of questions, and I think it's directed to Jen. When I look at 310 CMR 5C, and it says that the work shall not go closer to the river than the existing conditions. And I understand Raul is pointing to the edge of the pavement as being closer than what he's proposing. But it also says, or 100 feet, whichever is less from the river, And
Correct.
this is within 100-foot edge of the river.
Correct.
So that's, I think, why DEP has a problem with it.
Well, it says whatever is less.
No,
So,
Whatever.
100 feet, no closer than the existing developed area, or 100 feet, whichever is less.
so if
So I'm-
if Raul is proposing 81 feet, wouldn't 81 feet be less than 100? What I think DEP is doing is they're bouncing it off the existing house
Okay,
and not the driveway. But if you go back, Pat, and you look at 1004 and you look at the redevelopment, it says,
I was reading it backwards. I apologize, Jen.
oh, no
Because,
problem.
You know, it's no closer than the existing conditions or 100 feet, whatever is less. And I see the existing conditions. He's referring to the pavement, and perhaps DEP didn't consider that.
I don't think they did, and I'll consult DEP for the future, but if you read the definition of redevelopment, as it pertains, it says means replacement, rehabilitation, or expansion of existing structures improvements of existing roads or reuse of degraded or previously developed areas for the purposes of 310 CMR 58, which is the riverfront. So I believe where Raul is going is or reuse of degraded or previously developed areas. Correct, Raul? Yeah.
Okay. And my second question was, has staff looked at whether or not this complies with Falmouth Regulation 1018-7E? The expansion provisions, moving no closer to the resource area.
So I can answer
But
that.
And that talks about a,
I can
I'm
answer
sorry?
that. So the project itself, it's moving closer to the buffer zone A, but it's not in buffer zone A.
A.
It can move
How
closer to
about
buffer
the
zone
A?
A as long as it's not moving closer from what's existing in buffer zone A, but we're staying in buffer zone B.
aren't you in the A zone to the coastal bank?
No,
No,
No? Okay.
no.
Because down at the bottom of the plan, there's an arrow pointed to the green line that's going through the building that says 100 feet from coastal bank. Maybe that's
Yeah,
just.
that was the what, yeah, but that's the total buffer zone for the coastal bank, Pat. So remember that the coastal bank has, in this case, what is it? 50, 50,
And that's on.
Oh,
the-
it's 50-50. Okay.
50,
Thanks.
50.
All right. Thank you.
Not a problem.
Appreciate your help.
All right. Anything else, Pat?
No, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Peter?
Thank you, Pat, for clearing up some questions. No further questions or comments.
Excellent. All right. Courtney, did you have something else?
Yes, well, just underline that if the engineer finds that the required pilings require a change of scope, that they have to come and amend amend any approval, that's all.
Duly noted.
Wait a minute, let me write that
All
down.
right.
Hang on, hang on. So special condition, Courtney, if change of scope due to the soil conditions, they have to come back for amended.
Yeah, just simply because it may change the impact of the work being done there.
Yep, nope, I got it.
Jamie,
Yes.
so to just follow up on that, I think the issue of this area is that on both sides of what is now the existing river that's basically channelized, these were all wetlands. So presumably there's peat below all of that. And the question is, and Raul mentioned this, you need a structural engineer to see how far down you need to go to make a stable.
Absolutely.
Right.
right? And if I can add an example, I know there was a case in Penzance where a pile was driven and it hit a layer of peat, and he just drove through the peat like it was butter for about 15 to 20 feet until he finally found the suitable soils to control the penetration of the pile. That could be the case of what's happening on the neighbor. It could be the case on our site. But yeah, before they start driving piles, they do a test drive to see how far they have to go down to properly secure the resistance of the piles.
So that's my point. Once we know that,
Right. Yeah, if there's going to be a significant change, Raul, we just want to know about it.
Understood.
And I think just to add on the neighboring property, I know staff had some concerns with it only being 9 feet to get away from that revetment and whether it was going to destabilize that area. So I think we had them do a little bit more exploratory work to kind of give us a level of comfort moving forward.
Agreed. All right, is there anything, any public comments?
There is nothing in the chat function, Mr. Chairman, and I don't believe anybody has their hand raised, so we're good.
All right. with that in mind,
Or may I make a motion?
please.
I'll make a motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Bird, second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to close the hearing. Are there any other comments? All right, Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter?
Walsh, aye.
It is unanimous. We have closed the hearing. Thank you, Raul.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Thank you, Raul. Good night.
Next up, Matthew Pacing Grief, 23 FR Lily Road, Woods Hole, Mass. For permission to construct additions, decks, and a screen porch to an existing single-family dwelling, and to plant previously cleared areas with native shrubs.
Mr. Chairman, Tom Bunker was in the attendees.
I didn't see him.
I did.
I saw
Okay.
And now he's no longer. So can we table this until I can find where Tom is? He was there. I saw him.
Gladfelter moved to table.
Bird, second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to table this hearing. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Harris, aye.
Peter.
Walsh, aye.
It is unanimous. We have tabled this hearing. Next up, our continued hearings are under a notice of intent, and all three have been continued. Therefore, next up, request to amend an existing order of conditions. First up, Dana Roden, Quistit Harbor Preservation Trust, 48 Quistit Harbor Road, Falmouth, Mass. Request to amend the order of conditions for Mass DEP 25-4430 to selectively grout revetment stones in and adjacent to the crest of the structure, and to add toe protection to the coir envelope slope. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I just promoted Jeremy Packard from Foth Engineering to present the amendment.
Jeremy, you're up.
All right, good evening, everyone. Jeremy Packard with Both Infrastructure and Environment, LLC. I'm here on behalf of Salt Pond Bird Sanctuaries and Quistit Harbor Preservation Trust to discuss the ongoing work out at Quistit Knob. Jen, just before I get started, is Dana Roden in the audience?
Yes, would you like me to promote Dana to a panelist?
Please.
Yes, I
And
will.
Nick Crawford, too, if he's also there.
Nick is not here.
All right, we'll go with Dana.
Oh, Mr. Bunker just reappeared.
Well, he's just gonna have to wait.
He is. I just promoted Dana Roden as a panelist.
Thank you. Okay, so a couple matters to discuss here tonight. I'll start with the first is the request to extend the order of conditions. So
Oh, wait,
we have.
Jeremy, that's later. Jeremy, that's later on in the agenda, so if you could just
We're doing the
address the
amendment.
amendment.
Got it. Okay, two orders to discuss on the amendment. The first is a request to perform selective grouting of the chink stones that are installed on the revetment. So work completed, Dale Briggs completed the work and demobilized in May of this past year. And some of you might be familiar with the Briggs family style of revetment. And it reflects, tightly fit armor stone, and the seams between the armor stone and the voids. It's not a structural issue. It's more of an aesthetic that he selectively places chink stones in between the voids to give it kind of a smooth aesthetic. And the issue that we have is that as we all know, the knob is heavily used by the public. It's maintained by Salt Park Sanctuary and Coastal Harbor Preservation for passive recreational use. And with having a site like that open to the public, we are subject to some instances of passive vandalism. And really what that means is people will take the tiny chink stones that are installed there, they'll pull them out and they'll throw them down the slope or just leave them off to the side or whatever it may be. So the idea here is to selectively have hire a mason. This wouldn't be the Briggs family that would do this, but hire a mason separately. That actually came from Dale's recommendation to remove individual chink stones just along the location of the revetment crest and the angle point of the revetment, basically where it's easily accessible from the top, to remove the stones and hand pack some grout in the locations under the stones to set the stone back in, and really just to make it so you couldn't go up and pull it out by hand is really all we're trying to eliminate out there. So we've already seen, we have some photo examples that I submitted in the documentation of some of the stones in the new work being removed this past summer. I mean, within a couple of weeks of opening it back up to the public, we had some instances of that. So so that would be the first order or the first request as far as the amendment goes. Just selective grouting, not the entire slope, just small areas where we want to lock in those chink stones. And so the second one that we're asking for an amendment for is for toe protection along the reconstructed bank on the south end of the property, the harbor side. And I'm going to share my screen. All right. Switching the cross sections. All right, so as part of this project, not the stone revetment piece, but the coir log, the coir envelope, and sand nourishment piece of the project on the harbor side. What we're seeing is the toe of the slope is being eroded due to, abnormally high tide events or lapping of the waves, and it's so close to the tide lines. We're not below either high tide or mean high water, but it is close enough that when we get small storm events or high wind chop or anything like that, that the waves are just kind of lapping at the bottom of this toe, and it slowly takes the material away, and it started to expose some of the coir envelope bags that we have installed as previously approved. So right now the issue isn't it's salvageable right now. We're still seeing the top of the slope hold stability. We have planted some grass in this location and really hoping that takes root to kind of hold everything in place as it is. So we're trying to get out ahead of this issue by placing a product called Elko Rock. And I don't love the name myself. I wish they had given it a more favorable name. It is a sand-filled geotextile bag. It's heavier duty, it's more durable against both wave action and UV damage than the coir bags. It doesn't degrade as quickly. And the idea is to put these bags just along the toe of the coir envelopes to protect the toe of the bank and allow the vegetation to establish itself on the slope. So we wouldn't anchor them or anything like that. It's 1 by 3 bags. They are shown. Here's an idea of them. These were actually suggested by, we kind of brainstormed what we could do in this location. These were suggested by Nick at Crawford Land Management. He's been doing, he installed the slope itself, and he's done some other work on site, working with Dana. And he has experience installing these. I think he installed them in Sandwich, and he had another project in Plymouth where he had some success with them. And he suggested giving this a shot and see if it's something that might work for our location. So we would install the bags, no anchoring, and then we'd replace the sand over the top of that and just try to let that be for a while. And again, just give the vegetation some time to establish itself on that bank. So that's really the long and short of it. I'd like to open it up for questions.
Thank you. You can stop sharing, sir.
Sure.
All right, Jen?
Jeremy, I'm not sure if you're going to be able to answer this. I still don't see Nick in the attendees, but how are you going to, since he's already done that slope work, how are you going to kind of fit these geo bags underneath there?
So the slope has exposed
Yes.
all the way back to the coir. Yeah, so we can just put it basically right up against the bottom of the slope there, and then just place the sand back over the top of it.
Okay. All right, perfect. That was my only question. How are you gonna, what's your construction access? Same.
Same construction access. Yeah. Maybe they have to go like walk over the work they've already done, but then they would just restore that on their way out, but no machinery or anything like that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Kevin, do you have anything to add? Kevin Newton?
I was curious about the construction access and whether or not you need machinery, but you just answered that. So thank you.
All right, Commissioner comments. Peter, we'll start with you.
Okay, how much additional sand will you need to cover the bags?
You're gonna make me just a quick math here, aren't you? So it's gonna be 3 square feet times 100 feet in length, about, that's 300 cubic feet, 27. So it's like 12 cubic yards.
Okay, no further questions.
Did you ask?
Yeah.
Yes, thanks. No questions or comments. Thank you.
Kevin?
Other than the use of the term passive vandalism, no questions, Mr. Chairman.
Got my attention
You know,
too.
when you take your grandson out and pull out a rock.
That's it. You gotta slap him and say, have some respect for the work people are doing around here. That's
Throw him in the water. Plug him out. Jeremy, is that sand on site?
No, that'll be brought on site
12 yards?
from the same source as the original bank on Nourishment.
Courtney?
Jamie, if it might just be me, but you're a bit garbly and kind of breaking up. Is anybody else having that problem?
I apologize.
Yeah, but you
I
just
can
asked
hear her.
for questions. Courtney, you're next. And you're muted.
You're on mute.
No question.
Betsy?
Yeah, so
Can you hear me?
I don't think I'd use the word passive vandalism, but dealing with a project that the public visits, a different project, but where there's lots of rock around, people like to pick up rocks and they like to toss them into the water. So I thought this was a very clever way to deal with that. So you'll still have a aesthetically pleasing wall, but you won't see pieces being taken for souvenirs or whatever.
Or at least they'll have to work for it if they do.
Yeah, but I mean, I thought that was a good idea.
Thank you.
Courtney, can you jump in as chair? I think Jamie's having some technical difficulties, so.
Okay. Are there any other questions from the commission? Okay, hearing none, I need a motion.
I'll make a motion, close the hearing and take it under advisement. Gladfelter.
Harris,
All
second.
second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to close the hearing and take it under advisement. Do we have any comments from the audience?
There's no chat, Courtney, and nobody has their hand raised, so I think we're all set.
Okay, then on that basis, I'll call for the vote. Let's see, Betsy
Gladfelter, aye.
and Peter
Walsh, aye.
and Kevin
O'Brien, aye.
and Pat,
Harris, aye.
Jamie,
You're
Jamie,
muted,
you're muted, and I can see you now.
You're muted, Jamie.
Yep, sorry. Matthews, aye.
okay, and Bird, did I miss anybody?
No, you're good, Court.
All right, motion carried, hearing closed. Thank you. Jamie, you
Thank you.
ready to go?
I don't know. Thank you, Courtney. I think I'm losing my connection intermittently.
Okay.
I don't know if you heard that.
Yeah, we did.
You want to continue or want me to?
He's frozen
I
again.
think he just answered the question.
All right, so
Courtney, we're gonna move on to the extension for Quistit Harbor. So the next agenda is request to extend, and then we'll jump back to Tom Bunker.
sounds like a plan. Okay, request to amend an existing, I'm sorry,
Extend.
extend an existing order of conditions, Dana Road and Quistit Harbor Preservation Trust, 48 Quistit Harbor Road, Falmouth, Mass, DEP 254430. Request 3-year extension. Staff comments?
Jeremy, why the 3-year extension?
Okay,
Um,
I'm sorry, Mr. Bird just asked about staff comments. I
No.
got the report. There were no staff comments that I saw.
Okay, I'm just curious, just the reasoning for the 3 years.
Okay, yep, so, Mr. Briggs, demobilized from the site in May. The reconstruction, I don't know if, any of you have seen the work, but it has gone really well. Everybody's very pleased, with the work that's been done so far. And, so with that good work has come some, additional funds that were able to be raised to, extend Mr. Briggs's contract and continue the work, towards the stone staircase along the causeway. So we had successfully completed 232 feet of work by May, and now we'd like to reconstruct another 110, 120, depending on where the funds end up. And with that, we had to accommodate Mr. Briggs' schedule. So his current workload has him returning to the site or intending to return to the Quistit site in February of 2022, February next year. So we did a partial restoration of the site to kind of open it for the summer of this year, and then he'll come back in February and continue the work, and then close up for good at the end of that. We're expecting that to take about 2 months, so we should be out of there by next May 2022. Our current order of conditions expires on February 27th, 2022, right about the time he's looking to get back on site. So we are asking for the full extension, allow the full 3 years, just to keep our options open. But we are anticipating, we just want to extend it so we can come back, do another 120 feet next year, and then we'll wrap this thing up.
Okay, thank you. No comments, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Kevin, do you have anything? Kevin Newton?
No, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Okay, all right, we'll go to commissioner comments. Kevin,
No comments, Mr. Chairman.
okay, Pat,
No comments, thanks.
Peter,
I have a question for Jen. Do we normally extend 1 year at a time or 3?
You've done for fairly large projects, you have done like up to 5 years. So I have no concerns with doing this like this. This is a fairly complicated and large project. So we're okay with that, Peter.
Okay, no further questions or comments.
Betsy,
No comments.
I got everybody. I have no comments either. I think it makes sense to extend it to out to 3 years. Do we have any comments from the gallery, so to speak?
No,
I'll make a
Okay.
motion. It's Gladfelter. I'll make a motion to grant the extension for 3 years.
Do we have a second?
O'Brien, second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to extend this for 3 years. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. Kevin,
O'Brien, yes.
Peter Walsh,
Walsh, yes.
Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
and Bird, aye. Okay, motion carried. The order is extended for 3 years. Thank you very much. Good luck with your project.
thank you, Dana.
Thank you.
Courtney, Jamie has lost his connection, so he's out. So we're going to jump back to Tom Bunker. So you need a motion to untable.
Okay, so we need a motion to untable, wait a minute, which one is this? Matthew Greff and 25 FR Lilly Road.
So moved, Gladfelter.
We have a second.
Second,
Okay, we have a motion, a second, untable. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
and Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
and Bird is aye, and Peter.
Walsh, aye.
You're on deck, Thomas.
Okay, thank you for putting up with my RD. Interesting watching what they're doing on the knob. So I'm here representing family property at 23 FR Lilly Road. Yeah, I will share my screen. Get this up here.
Is this due to the weather system?
I don't know.
Tom, you're kind of breaking up, just to warn you.
I'm breaking up too.
Yes.
Oh, dear.
We need
Let's see
better
what I-
internet in
What
Falmouth.
I can do. I try to do it fast. I'm right downtown. I should have good service. Anyway, this property, you see it at the corner, not at the corner, but at Far Lily Road. It abuts Emerald property on two sides and FR Road on. And to the west of the property, there was isolated freshwater vegetated wetland down here in one of the little kettle holes. There's also another wetland further away. We didn't. I traded on and the 100-foot buffer from that other wetland shrub identified on the GSP maps. That 100-foot buffer barely is onto the lot. Buffer from the wetland we look, the zone A just touches, it's just into the lot corner a little bit, and zone E comes apart. So at corner of the proposed house doesn't reach to the existing house. So basically, what we're proposing, the white area, the existing house, and out there was a deck built up in this area here that was previously it was permitted. The building department is more than 100 feet from the wetland, so it didn't require you. But then this addition they have here sort of stepped down the hill a little bit from the house into there, so it's just clips in the B of this wetland, 9 feet, corner 90 to the wetland. They had put in a septic system previous where we show a couple of cars, and the septic tank is over in this station. Far was put in that location, anticipating the placement of this addition here. and the new addition will tie in. And during that process, there was some grading, pushing fill around, and that created sort of a level area here, but also a steep area that's out zone B, and then also some disturbed surface in the zone B. And so what we have here is that the zone is fully vegetated, so there's technically no mitigation required. But we do have this area, it's about 575 square feet, basically of this area that's outside of the zone B, and all of the other disturbed area inside of the zone B will be planted up with this native shrubs, arrowwood, cherry, and any others that might be by a commission or the staff. There'll be, around it, some steps going around the house, shower rinse station in this location that will feed into a dry well. All the other corners, gutters will feed into a dry well, and all of the other disturbances will be owned and seeded with the drought tolerant grass seed in conform to Falcon regulars and the nitrogen control bylaw. The staff report suggest leaving the trees that were down in this area where some of this, and I would say that they'd be happy. I haven't got to reach the owners yet, but I say they'd be happy to leave as habitat when they're doing this. And so in the staff report, which was submission should be restoration, and I will submit a new plan to you that incorporates that change and anything else that might come up tonight. So I will stop the share and take your comments.
Okay.
If you heard me.
Jen, do you have staff comments?
Just, Tom, you were super garbly. So did you tell us what those tanks were? Was that the septic tank that we're seeing out there?
Yes, that's a septic tank.
Okay, that's what I thought. All right, label restoration, thank you. Fallen trees, I heard. And the only thing I didn't hear, the existing house, are we renovating that at all, or is that remaining the same?
It's not changing. As I said in my email, it's probably likely that they might be doing a reshingling job, and I haven't gotten an answer back yet.
Okay, just
From the
reshingling,
owners.
we're not like putting on a second floor or anything like that.
No, nothing else. Possibly reshingling or whatever, but nothing
Okay.
else.
All right, I'm fine with that. I'm all set, Courtney.
All right, Kevin, do you have anything?
No comment, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, we'll go to commissioner comments. Betsy,
No comments. Thanks, Courtney. Thanks, Tom.
Pat,
No comments, thank you.
Peter,
No questions or comments.
Kevin,
No comments, Mr. Chairman.
and Bird. We'll make it unanimous. So
I'll make a motion if you want, Courtney.
what's that? So I guess we need a motion.
I'll make a motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement, so
Do we-
Tom can get back to his cheese pizza.
Do we have a second?
Walsh, second.
Second, O'Brien.
All right, so we have a second by Mr. Walsh. All right, Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
and Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
and Peter,
Walsh, aye.
and Bird says aye too. So
Aye,
the
aye.
motion is that the hearing is closed. Thank you very much. Nice job, Tom.
Thank
Enjoy
you.
the rest of
Thank
the
you for
week.
listening. Garbled voice. Have a good night.
Good night, Tom.
Right, Tom.
That we won't make a pitch for better internet at this point. Moving on. Okay, what's the next?
Tremendous restraint.
Well, next on the agenda, we go back to, let's see. We've gotten the extent, so the next is the hearings under an enforcement order. Kevin and Christina,
Donager.
yeah, Doninger, I just have to, I'm reading this off of my phone. Bear
It's
with
okay.
me.
I'll read it for you, Courtney. 59 Shorewood Drive, East Falmouth, Mass. Unpermitted construction of a patio and the unpermitted reconstruction of a deck. They are requesting a continuance until September 1st. They are currently out of the area, possibly the country. So they had asked. I just wanted to get it on the agenda so it didn't get lost. So.
So, all right, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to continue to September 1st.
We have a second?
Shar, second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
and Bird, aye. So the motion carries, and it's continued to, what's the date?
September
September
4th.
1.
September 1st. Okay, moving on. Next is a continued hearing under enforcement hearing or enforcement order. Samuel Pikowski and Marcy Gerstenhaber, 390 Hatchville Road, Falmouth, unpermitted removal of vegetation within conservation jurisdiction.
Courtney, I'm going to let Kevin Newton take this one over. He's taking the lead on this.
Kevin, you're on deck.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe the commission will remember this one. This has to do with clearing down an embankment on Jenkins Pond. I believe it's Jenkins Pond,
Deep Pond.
Hatchville.
A deep
Deep
pond.
Pond?
Deep Pond.
Deep Pond. I apologize, Deep Pond. This matter has been continued a number of times. I believe where we left off, we had told the property owners and their representative, which is Michael Talbot, that we would be producing a draft enforcement order to discuss at tonight's hearing. So I had sent all of you a copy of that draft earlier this afternoon, and I also had forwarded that to Mr. Talbot. And at this time, I'd like to open the door for the commission to discuss any findings or conditions that they would like to supplement that draft enforcement order with.
I'll go around the table. Kevin, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No comments.
Pat?
Only one, actually two, Kevin. By the way, nice job on the enforcement order.
Thank you.
Very thorough. I remember at the end of our last hearing on this matter, I believe it was Maury, asked for a split rail fence. And she also asked for a sign saying conservation area.
Correct.
And then lastly, I see there's a 20-foot wide view corridor. Is that wider than is typically allowed?
Did you say 20 or 24?
I think it says 25 in your order.
That's what's in our regulations.
Oh, all right, thank you. No further questions or comments. Thank you, Kevin. Nice job.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Betsy?
I concur with Pat. I think Kevin did a nice job.
And Peter?
Likewise.
So if I missed anybody other than me, and I don't have anything to add, nice job, Kevin. And so the question is, do we need to make a motion, or is there anything action we need to take other?
No, you just make a motion unless Ms. Piskowski I can promote Ms. Piskowski
Yes.
as a panelist. Lynn, I just promoted you as a panelist if you have anything to say. If not, that's fine too. I guess not. So at this point, the board just votes to issue the enforcement order.
I'll make a motion to issue the enforcement order as drafted by Kevin and with the additional, who suggested? Kevin
Pat, the additional comments by Pat.
or Pat, whoever remembered that.
Okay, do we have
I'll
a
second.
All right, we have a motion and a second issue, an enforcement order as qualified by Pat. Okay, any further discussion? I'll call for the vote. Kevin
O'Brien, aye.
and Pat,
Harrison,
Betts,
Gladfelder, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
and Bird. Aye. Motion carried. An enforcement order has been issued. Thank you, and thank you for all the hard work getting us to this point. It's good. And hopefully the environment ends up being the winner in this. Okay, moving along. The last item on the agenda is to vote order of conditions. Christina C., hold on. Christina C. and Matthew P. O'Connor, trustees, the Christina C. O'Connor Trust, 37 Fells Road, Falmouth, Mass.
So Courtney, just to let you know, the quorum on this is Courtney, Kevin, Betsy, and Peter, not Pat.
Okay.
So this, remembers this is I just had it up. Raise and rebuild, pretty much almost in the kind of the same configuration. Doing kind of little stone steppers down to Oyster Pond. I don't remember anything very particular about this one. They didn't really enlarge it at all. And again, kept it pretty much in the same configuration. Proposed plantings. I don't believe there was any even mitigation required for this one. So just a straight raise and rebuild.
Okay.
Do you remember anything, Betsy?
No, it was pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Kevin, do you have anything to add?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Anybody else want to add any tweaks to that, to this discussion? Well, then I think it's time to have a motion.
I'll make a motion to close. I mean, I'm gonna make a motion to accept this and issue an order of conditions.
As discussed.
Accept as discussed and issue an order of conditions.
Walsh, second.
Okay, we have a motion, a second, to issue an order of conditions on Fells Road. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Pat,
I'm not on this one, Courtney.
what's that?
That's
I'm
Oh,
not
you're
on
not
this
on it,
one.
I'm sorry.
That's
Peter,
all right, thanks.
Walsh, aye.
Betsy,
Gladfelder, aye.
and Bird, aye. So we have a motion and to adopt an order of conditions. All right, and now I await one final motion from somebody. Unless there's something you want to add, Jen?
I'm all set, Courtney.
Motion to adjourn.
Walsh,
Harris, second.
Do we have any detailed discussion? No detailed discussion. Nobody wants to question that order? All right, then I'll call for a vote to adjourn. Although, I'm sorry, Kevin
O'Brien, aye.
and Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
and Betts.
Gladfelder, aye.
And and I'll make it unanimous. We're adjourned. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the week and your weekend. See you next.
Good, everybody.